Welcome to the Zen Studies podcast. I'm Domio Berg. No new supporting members in the last 2 weeks, but of course, continued thanks to all of you who support the podcast with recurring donations. All my podcast offerings are free, including my new episodes and my library of over 300 past episodes, including written versions available at zenstudiespodcast.com. My vocation as a Zen priest and teacher is a great joy, but my income through my Zen Center grows very slowly over the years. So your donations support my work, providing 40% of my income at this point in time. So thank you. On to today's topic. A place where everybody knows your name. Sangha as community. In Buddhism, we have 3 treasures: Buddha, teachers or our own awakened nature, Dharma, the teachings or the truth itself, and Sangha, the community of people who practice and maintain the tradition together. From the beginning of Buddhism, then, community has been considered essential. But in what sense? We may think of Sangha primarily as a rather impersonal institution providing access to Buddhist teachings and practice. And it certainly fulfills that function. But I believe it's equally important that our Sanghas be welcoming, loving, joyful, mature communities. A place where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. Sanghas as communities. Thich Nhat Hanh, the beloved Vietnamese Zen master, famously said, quote, "The Buddha Shakyamuni, our teacher, predicted that the next Buddha would be Maitreya, the Buddha of love. We desperately need that love. And in the Buddha's teaching, we learn that love is born from understanding. The willingness to love is not enough. If you do not understand, you cannot love. The capacity to understand the other person will bring about acceptance and loving kindness. It is possible the next Buddha will not take the form of an individual. The next Buddha may take the form of a community practicing understanding and loving kindness, a community practicing mindful living." End quote. A Buddha is an awakened being who teaches others, enabling them to awaken as well. According to Buddhist mythology, Shakyamuni was just one in a long line of Buddhas helping people liberate themselves. Thich Nhat Hanh is suggesting here that perhaps what humanity needs most right now is to come together in beloved community, to learn from one another and facilitate one another's awakening. Rather than looking to an extraordinary and charismatic person for leadership, we need to remember how interdependent we are. Such reconnection isn't just important for Sangha and Buddhist practice. It's critical to the survival of humanity. The kinds of Sanghas we need now may be different than those of the past. Most communities of Buddhist practitioners in the past have been composed largely of monastics. This means they emphasized renunciation, simplicity, silence, and formality. Monastic culture is valued by modern lay practitioners in the context of meditation and retreats and formal Dharma practice. But it's a stark contrast to what lay people generally do when they get together to create community. Lay people, especially if they want to engage youth and children in the activities, are inclined toward informality, celebration, uninhibited conversation, good food and drink, and things like music and play and the creation of beauty. On the other hand, maybe Sangha as social community isn't a new thing at all. It's impossible to accurately summarize how Buddhist communities have manifested over the last 2,500 years. At least not without writing volumes. But I think it's fair to say that in most times and places, there has been a community of lay people associated with any given monastic practice center or temple. Some of these lay people practiced in a way similar to the monastics, but most of them engaged in devotional practices, including the support of the monks and maintenance of the temple. Inevitably, the associated lay community created social connection in all the ways human beings typically do. I remember attending a Buddhist celebration at a local Vietnamese temple. In addition to monks conducting ceremonies and offering teachings, there was abundant food, elaborate decorations, music, traditional dances by the young women of the Sangha, and an exciting parade involving massive dragon puppets. The whole community seemed vibrant and inclusive of whole families. It struck me as a more sustainable model of Sangha than many Western Buddhist practice centers follow. A model which often focuses exclusively on what was, traditionally, the most monastic aspects of the tradition. Traditional social activities in my lineage, Japanese Soto Zen, include choirs singing a beautiful form of religious chanting called baika, groups studying formal flower arranging called ikebana, and the production of beautiful, elaborate meals for celebrations. Zen temples in Japan also often house preschools and are overrun with children much of the week. Because most Japanese priests marry and have families, there's often a temple family present, and it will not be considered unusual to see the priest unwinding with his family over a beer. The temple grounds are usually beautiful and benefit from care and upkeep from volunteers. All of this invites the formation of a community centered on the temple that extends well beyond those interested primarily in meditation and formal Dharma study. As Buddhism has taken root in the West, convert communities, that is, those composed largely of people who were not born into a Buddhist family, have typically viewed the social environment of traditional temples as incidental to Sangha practice. The presence of people at traditional temples who aren't doing formal Dharma practice, and activities beyond silent meditation and Dharma study and formal practice are often seen as cultural phenomena not directly relevant to the essence of the Buddhist tradition. Ironically, while many convert Dharma centers may have decided not to continue social activities they identify as merely cultural in the countries through which they trace their Buddhist lineage, most have ended up creating their own methods of cultivating social connection and building community. Such methods are appropriate to our cultural setting and time. For example, many Dharma centers maintain a practice place with numerous activities throughout the week. They generally have all those activities an explicit practice aspect, but they often involve smaller, more intimate cohort groups or incorporate a time to check in when each participant has a chance to speak. volunteers come to help maintain the premises or the communal library or help with administrative tasks. Sometimes there are potlucks and talent shows or informal movie nights. And the festivals central to the Buddhist tradition, such as celebrating the Buddha's birth, commemorating his death, or the Festival of the Hungry Ghosts, often incorporate children and joyful aspects of celebration, like candy for hungry ghosts and birthday cake for the baby Buddha. The need for community. I have come to believe strongly that the community aspect of Sangha is central, not incidental, to practice. Especially long-term lay practice, where practitioners aren't present only for relatively short periods of intensive training or retreat, but expect to live their lives as Buddhists in a particular area for the rest of their life, or at least until circumstances take them elsewhere. In a stable, mostly lay Sangha, the creation of community provides an essential foundation for practice, enabling people to go much deeper into the Dharma than they otherwise could. Deep practice isn't easy. It challenges the ego and asks a person to face their karma and explore the true nature of self. Most people are carrying wounds and trauma from past difficult relationships. A social environment of safety and care, acknowledgement, and joy allows people to heal and relax and form connections and develop strength for practice. When I look out at American culture, I see an awful lot of loneliness and social isolation. Family, including intimate partner relationships, is where most of us hope to get our social connection and support and companionship. For many people, though, family relationships are stressful or even dysfunctional. Or our family may include a very limited number of people, or our family members may live far away from us. Friendship, the next place we look for social connection, is similarly hit or miss in terms of the support it gives. In the U.S., friendships are often conditional and short-lived, based on a shared workplace or activity. When jobs or interests end, so do the friendships. People are rarely committed to maintaining unconditional friendships indefinitely. In his book, The Art of Community, Charles Vogel describes a community as, quote, a group of individuals who share a mutual concern for one another's welfare, end quote. He says community is, quote, distinct from a group whose members may share ideas, interests, proximity, or any number of things, but lack concern for one another, end quote. At least in the U.S., especially in urban or suburban areas, real community beyond family and a small group of friends is essentially non-existent. At least for white people, and probably also for people of color who have lost touch with any ethnic or cultural groups they might once have been part of. In most places, we don't even know our neighbors, despite having lived next to them for years. When we enjoy activities that traditionally have built community, like eating, listening to music, or dancing, we pay to enjoy these things in settings where we are surrounded by strangers. Ways Sangha can provide community as well as access to the Dharma. Modern Sanghas have the potential to fill a massive social void for people who want to practice the Dharma. In addition to providing access to Buddhist teachings and practice, Sanghas can create a third place in people's lives. In his book, The Great Good Place, cafes, coffee shops, bookstores, bars, hair salons, and the other hangouts at the heart of a community, Ray Oldenburg explains that, quote, "The third place is a generic designation for a great variety of public places that host the regular, voluntary, informal, and happily anticipated gatherings of individuals beyond the realms of home and work." End quote. Notably, Oldenburg does not include religious communities in his list of typical third places. This is probably because, by definition, third places are informal and meant to be relaxing. In other words, the serious aspects of religious communities, such as meditation or prayer, devotion, study, formality, or the emphasis on ethical behavior, are not what you usually find in hangouts at the heart of a community. Notably, Oldenburg also emphasizes the value of third places being close to and easily accessible from one's home. Still, if we examine the community that forms in association with religious institutions, many of Oldenburg's characteristics of third places can potentially be created within our Sanghas. So I will now share 7 of the 8 characteristics of third places described by Oldenburg in The Great Good Place. I'll read a descriptive paragraph and then say something about how the characteristic can manifest in Sangha. Quote, "The third place is a leveler. A place that is a leveler is, by its nature, an inclusive place. It is accessible to the general public and does not set formal criteria of membership and exclusion. Worldly status claims must be checked at the door in order that all within may be equals." End quote. Within a Sangha, we require only that people are respectful of one another and of the community activities and culture. As long as we keep financial support of the Sangha based on voluntary donation, no one is excluded based on income or lifestyle or social status. We may have membership, but it is open to any sincere seeker. Second characteristic, quote, "Conversation is the main activity. Nothing more clearly indicates a third place than that the talk there is good, that it is lively, scintillating, colorful, and engaging. The joys of association in third places may initially be marked by smiles and twinkling eyes, by handshaking and backslapping, but they proceed and are maintained in pleasurable and entertaining conversation. Conversation's improved quality within the third place is also suggested by its temper. It is more spirited than elsewhere, less inhibited and more eagerly pursued. Compared to the speech in other realms, it is more dramatic and more often attended by laughter and the exercise of wit." End quote. While conversation may not exactly be the main activity in a Sangha compared to Buddhist practices, I take joyful conversation to be one of the best signs of a thriving community. Few things bring me more joy than hearing the din of voices during the social breaks that occur in the course of my Sangha's practice events. Naturally, in uninhibited conversation, we sometimes fail to live up to the highest aspirations of right speech in Buddhism. But this also gives us the opportunity to work on our expression in the supportive context of Sangha. Buttoned down, self-conscious speech within Sangha inhibits social connection and generally doesn't improve the character of our speech elsewhere. My own teachers encouraged free conversation over meals at the Zen Center where I trained. And they talked about how this allowed them to get a much better sense of where people were in their practice than simply listening to what they said in a formal practice situation. I know I stuck my foot in my mouth many a time during such conversations, but the point of community was to show up and be real, not to be perfect. Number 3, quote, accessibility and accommodation. Third places that render the best and fullest service are those to which one may go alone at almost any time of the day or evening, with assurance that acquaintances will be there. To have such a place available whenever the demons of loneliness or boredom strike, or when the pressures and frustrations of the day call for relaxation amid good company, is a powerful resource. Those who have third places exhibit regularity in their visits to them, but it is not that punctual and unfailing kind shown in deference to the job or family. The timing is loose, days are missed, some visits are brief, etc. Viewed from the vantage point of the establishment, there is a fluidity in arrivals and departures and an inconsistency of membership at any given hour or day. End quote. Most Sanghas end up wanting to establish a place of practice of their own instead of renting or using borrowed space. This allows them to offer meetings at various times throughout the week, or even have open hours when members can come and spend time. One model of Sangha space that meets the accessibility and accommodation characteristic of a third space is one where the Sangha space includes residents, often the community's teacher or a monastic, and sometimes a handful of lay people as well. This vastly expands the number of hours in a week that a Sangha space, let's call it a temple, can be open to members to drop by, practice, share meals, study, or volunteer. At the temple, they will almost always run into someone else. Number 4, the regulars. Quote, it is the regulars who give the place its character and who assure that on any given visit, some of the gang will be there. Every regular was once a newcomer, and the acceptance of newcomers is essential to the sustained vitality of the third place. Acceptance into the circle is not difficult, but it is not automatic either. Much of what is involved may be learned by observing the order of welcome to third places. Most enthusiastically greeted is the returning prodigal, the individual who had earlier been a loyal and accepted regular, but whom circumstances had in most recent months kept away. This individual is perhaps the only one likely to get more than his democratic share of attention. End quote. Because Buddhism generally does not encourage proselytizing, that is, trying to get people to become Buddhists or stay committed to Buddhism, Sanghas often err on the side of displaying detachment with respect to the presence or absence of individuals. It's up to each person whether they want to show up or leave the community, and we don't want to pressure anyone. However, it's also human to want people to notice you and care about you, to value you as unique and special. In any supportive community, there will be natural affinities, the formation of friendships, affection, and concern about those who have drifted away. Number 5. A low profile. Quote, "Third places are unimpressive looking for the most part. They're not elegant. In cultures where mass advertising prevails and appearance is valued over substance, the third place is all the more likely not to impress the uninitiated. Third places, that is, are not usually constructed as such. Rather, establishments built for other purposes are commandeered by those seeking a place where they can linger in good company. Usually, it is the older place that invites this kind of takeover. Newer places are more wedded to the purposes for which they were built. Plainness, especially on the inside of third places, also serves to discourage pretension among those who gather there. A non-pretentious decor corresponds with and encourages leveling and the abandonment of social pretense. The best attitude toward the third place is that it merely be an expected part of life." End quote. I have been to some beautiful Dharma centers, but honestly, even the fanciest ones I can think of are still a bit on the funky side. Their real beauty shines through in the way that a community loves and inhabits them. I've seen thriving Dharma centers and houses, office buildings, converted storefronts, and old motels. Communities come together to create a space, and participation and a sense of ownership is most encouraged when a Sangha starts with a place that needs some loving care to become an inviting center of practice. Number 6. The mood is playful. Quote, "Sometimes the playful spirit is obvious, as when the group is laughing and boisterous. Other times it will be subtle. Whether pronounced or low-key, however, the playful spirit is of utmost importance. Here joy and acceptance reign over anxiety and alienation. The urge to return, recreate, and recapture the experience is there. Invariably the suggestion is made, 'Let's do this again.' The third place exists because of that urge." End quote. Playfulness may not be something you associate with Buddhist practice, and indeed, as I mentioned earlier, it may seem to be lacking when you focus on the traditionally monastic aspects of the tradition. However, if people truly feel comfortable within a community, their playfulness will naturally come out at times. In addition, the reaction of community members to mistakes is a dead giveaway with respect to its underlying culture. How seriously do people take themselves in a religious tradition that teaches us we are empty of inherent self-nature? I felt nothing but pride when recently the chant leader at my Zen center completely messed up. Due to a cut and paste error, he had started chanting an entirely different section from everyone else. Once we figured it out, he said, "Oops!" Everyone laughed, and we went on. And number 7, quote, "A home away from home. Seeking traits of homeness," Oldenburg says, "I chanced upon a volume by the psychologist David Seaman. He set forth 5 criteria against which homes away from home can be assessed. 1. The home roots us, begins Seaman. It provides a physical center around which we organize our comings and goings. 2. Appropriation, or a sense of possession and control over a setting that need not entail actual ownership. Those who claim a third place typically refer to it in the first person possessive, and they behave there much as if they did own the place. 3. Homes are places where individuals are regenerated or restored. 4. The feeling of being at ease or the freedom to be. It involves the active expression of personality, the assertion of oneself within an environment. 5. Finally, there is warmth. It is the least tangible of the 5 qualities Seaman associates with at-homeness, and it is not found in all homes. Warmth emerges out of friendliness, support, and mutual concern. It radiates from the combination of cheerfulness and companionship, and it enhances the sense of being alive. End quote. It is not at all uncommon for people to experience their Sangha as being one of the first and only settings where they have a home away from home, in the way Seaman describes. When a Sangha feels like home to us, we are much more likely to be able to entrust ourselves to the process of Buddhist practice we encounter there. So that's it for this episode, but I have already released part 2, so I hope you will check it out. Thanks for listening.